on, guys? Today we are in TG headquarters and we're going to go show you guys a real quick install of our newest product for the XL cart. So we've got our 40 tooth lower gear that's a bolt-on solution, comes with a center spacer, the chain that would then work with the 11 tooth upper, so you'd actually have a gear set here. We highly recommend this to be for a 48 volt cart. The 11 tooth alone will work on a stock cart, but obviously having the more voltage will make it faster. So we're going to jump right into the install so you guys get an understanding of how to do it, and it's super simple. Alright, so we have the stock XL front wheel assembly, 45 tooth gear, and so essentially we are going to install our 42 TG gear, and then this is the alignment spacer, which we'll show in the install here. So it's going to be a simple thing. You're going to grab your 8mm socket or wrench, and you're going to remove these 3 bolts. So we'll go ahead and do that. Right, and you want to be careful. These little crush washers are important, so you want to keep those with your bolts. Set those aside and hold that thing, because sometimes they are tight like that. And then we've got the 3 things. So then now the whole gear will come off. This normally does have a chain guard on it, something along that line, so it would look like that if you have it. This one just doesn't have a chain guard on it currently. Not a big deal. So we're now going to set the wheel out of the way, and we're going to work on this part solely. So you'll see these 4 10mm bolts. If we flip it over, they've got nuts on the back side, right? So we are going to reuse this adapter piece, and we're going to change the gear. So what you'll do, I take a 10mm wrench, I put it on the back side of that. So I'm going to take that 10mm socket, and we are going to remove these bolts. 4 bolts, 4 nuts that we will reuse, and then now this is the 45 tooth gear. So this gear is going to be just something you put in your toolbox or whatever. I would not throw that out, because this just changes how fast the cart will go up top. So now that we have our stock 45 tooth gear off, we're going to reuse this adapter plate. So what you're going to do, you're going to take, this is what comes in the box when you order it, so you'll have your centering spacer and the gear. So the centering spacer is crucial to keep the gear center on this hub-centric ring. So now we found that these rings kind of vary a little bit, so we've made the gear a little bit looser, so that way you can take this centering spacer, snap it in here, and it centers the gear on this adapter plate. So what we'll do is just align the bolt holes, right? So you have all 4 bolt holes lined up, and this centering spacer is doing its job. So it's literally pressed up, so this is all flat, and that keeps that gear centered when you want to put it together. You then put each bolt in, so we make sure that it's completely centered while this center spacer is in. So now that we've got that centered in there, we've got all 4 bolts. I flip it over, I hold my hand there, and then you can now put the nuts on. So these are nylocking nuts, so they'll be pretty loose, and then they'll get tight as they get on there, because there's nylon holding the threads, so it doesn't come loose. So you got all those 4 on there. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go back, grab our wrench, hold it on the back side. I'm going to grab my gun, and I'm going to snug them. Right? We want to just make sure that we don't have the adapter plate fall out, because then now you're going to tighten it, and it's not going to be centered on the wheel. So, boom, boom. Alright, and then we'll just hit it a little bit with the doesn't have to be crazy tight. This impact is way tighter for what we're doing, but one little hit. Right, our center spacer is still in there to keep it aligned. Pop that center spacer out, and now we are fully centered. So that is ready to install. You put your gear on there. So you remember those little washers we were talking about? So those go back in here. Grab your 8mm. Also, do not crank on these things. They do not need to be that tight, but they need to be tight. So it's a light hit on the gun, or do it by hand. But now that is a 40 tooth lower taxi garage gear installed on the XL wheel. So with this same part of the install, you're going to also, if you're buying the pair together, which The only way this works is you have the upper gear as well, which is our TG 11 tooth sprocket. And you're going to grab your motor. So you can potentially do it on the cart. I usually find it's easier to take the motor off the cart. You're probably going to be doing a motor support plate, 48 volt all at the same time, so it's better just to take it off and work with it nice and clean. So this is a reverse threaded shaft. So righty is not tighty. It would be righty, loosey, lefty, tighty. So we're going to grab our 12 millimeter socket, and that fits on the sprocket here. So since I have an impact, it will normally come off with just impacting it. So we're going to tighten, right? So we're going to the right, and we're going to tighten this and hit it, and it loosens up just like that. So if you don't have an impact, what you can do is take some pliers and hold the gear there and grab a wrench and break it free. This is not on there very tight. It does have this lock washer right here, which we're going to reuse. So your factory 9-tooth gear comes off. So your TG 11-tooth gear goes on. Your crush washer goes back on. And then now you're going to reverse thread this on there, right? So we are now actually going left, counterclockwise. So you want to make sure you change your gun to counterclockwise. Get this come down, get this started like that, and then I hit it like that, and we're done. So with this kit, you can buy the 11-tooth solely. This will work with a factory chain. So this will give you about a mile an hour or so faster on the top end. You do lose a little bit of torque. So what we normally recommend is if you have 48 volt, that pairs nicely because you're going to have the extra voltage to get up out of like the lower RPM range. So this is the chain that we have designed for this kit. So this is for the 40-tooth lower and the 11-tooth upper. So that would actually work together and make that a complete kit. So if you were just to buy the 40-tooth lower and not the upper, you're going to have to make a chain because this chain does not work. If you were going to buy just the upper, you can get away with just the upper and a factory chain from the 45-tooth. Or if you bought the upper and the lower, we provide a chain, which would be the kit that you would purchase for the. This is basically as much gearing as we feel comfortable with. What you do want to make sure is you keep an eye on temperature of the motor because when you start changing gearing, you're putting more load on the motor. It's up to you to make sure you don't overheat your motor. So we go with the rule of thumb or finger. If I can't hold my fingers on this motor for more than 2 seconds, it's time for me to let it cool down. So that gives you a little bit of longevity with these factory motors. The factory motors can blow up even on stock configuration. So we are squeezing on this motor. So this is kind of for the guys that are at 48 volt. They're wanting more speed, but they're not really ready for a 1,000-watt kit. This is kind of that in-between. But be prepared that it is putting more load on your motor, so you have a higher chance of breaking it. So it's completely up to you. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching the install. This stuff is live on the website now, and we look forward to you guys sending it. Thank you.